Hi, it's time for another verb of the day. Today's verb is boost. I want to first thank Robert, who is a very loyal viewer and has made so many great suggestions for verbs that I should discuss. This is another one of his wonderful suggestions. So thank you, Robert. Now let's talk a little bit about how we use the verb boost. The first way you're likely to hear boost used is to help or maybe even encourage someone or something to increase or improve. We're going to look at many example sentences later on that discuss this idea of increasing or improving. Many times we hear this in business. Companies are looking to boost profits or do things that lead to an increase in their profits, the money they make. A second way you might hear boost used is to mean to push from below, and we're referring to something that's done in a way to be helpful, to assist another person. So someone might be climbing up or over something, right? And they might need their friend to kind of give them a little push to help them reach the top. A third way you might hear boost used is to mean to amplify an electrical signal. So, radio stations, TV stations might be looking to increase like where their signal is able to reach so that there can be more listeners or watchers. A fourth way you'll hear boost used is slang here in the United States. So, if we describe someone as boosting something from a store, we're saying they're stealing. This is another way to say they're shoplifting. So they go into a store, maybe act like they're going to buy something, they take something without paying for it. You should know that boost is a regular verb. To make the progressive form, where all we're going to do is add ing to form boosting. The past tense and participle forms of this verb are made by adding ed. Our base verb boost ends in a T sound. So our past tense ending is going to make an id sound, and we're going to add an extra syllable as we say it. Boosted, boosted. Okay. Now, there is one phrasal verb that we'll look at. The phrasal verb boost up really connects back to our second definition of the verb. So, but we're going to add something onto this. So, I talked about physically pushing someone upward. But boost up can also mean that we are emotionally pushing someone up or lifting them up. You can see that in my example sentence. I took this from a quotation from a softball player following a game. She said, "My home run really boosted up the team and gave us confidence we could come back and win." Right? So here she's talking about kind of emotionally, right? We were feeling, oh, this other team's going to beat us. Oh no, right? And then she gets this big hit, and now people get more confident. Now let's practice using our verb of the day boost in a couple different verb tenses. We're going to talk about the past perfect and the present perfect progressive. Let's start with the past perfect. We use this verb tense to really stress or note that an event or an action, I should say an action, has occurred before the point at which we are speaking or writing. Sometimes you will see it used in a sentence with the simple past tense. And again, we're trying to stress that the action in the past perfect occurred before the action that is in the simple past tense. To make the past perfect, we need two parts to our verb. We need the past form of have, which is had, and then we need the participle form of our verb. And this is going to be our structure no matter what our subject is. Let's take a look at an example. Some countries had boosted troop levels in Europe prior to Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Right? So here we're talking about increasing the level of troops or the number of soldiers. If I want to make a negative past perfect sentence, my structure, again, will be our subject, then had, then not, and then the participle form of the verb. You can see that in the sentence. The state hadn't boosted funding for food pantries for many years. If I want to make a yes or no question, my structure here is going to be to start with had, then I'll have my subject, then the participle form of the verb. Here's another example. Had the children boosted things from the convenience store before they were caught? Okay, so sounds like children were caught shoplifting, right? And this question is asking, did they shoplift before the time at which they were caught? Now, let's take a look at the present perfect progressive. I always like to point out that some books and sometimes other teachers call this the present perfect continuous. That's okay, they mean the same thing. I like using present perfect progressive because I like to help my students remember with this verb tense, they're going to need three parts to make the affirmative. Okay, so we need to pay attention to what our subject is. If our subject is I, you, we, or they, I'm going to use have next. But if my subject is he, she, or it, I'll use has. Okay, so my first part is have or has. Then I'm going to use the participle been, B-E-E-N, and then I'm going to use the ing form of the verb. Here's an example. Growing China Europe freight train services have been boosting trade and economic exchanges in Eurasia. I borrowed this sentence from a news article. And so freight train is referring to cargo, right? So trains that transport things, not people. Um, these services, right, are growing, and it's had the effect of increasing trade and economic exchanges. Eurasia might be new for you, but it's really just referring to that gigantic landmass that goes kind of from the UK to Japan and everything in between. Now let's look at making a negative present perfect progressive sentence. To do this, our structure again will be to start with our subject, then have or has, then been, and then our have or has, then we need not, right? Not, because it's negative. Then we're going to use our participle been and then our ing form of the verb. Here's another example. Advertising hasn't been boosting our sales. Okay, so maybe this is something a CEO or other professional in a company notes, right? This is not increasing our sales. Finally, if we want to make a yes or no question in the present perfect progressive, we start with have or has, then we have our subject, then we use the participle been, and then the ing form of the verb. You can see that in the example. Have companies been boosting starting pay to attract more workers? Right? So again, back to that meaning of increasing. Now, let's take a moment to look at some words that are related to our verb boost. The first word we're going to look at is just the noun form of this word. So, same spelling, same pronunciation. When I use the noun boost, it can have a couple different meanings. One meaning would be a source of help or encouragement that leads to some sort of increase or improvement. An example of this might be, what will give the economy a boost, right? So we're wanting to know what actions will be a source of help. A second way you might hear the noun boost is just to refer to any increase or any improvement. An example here, we've seen an attendance boost this week, right? So we're talking about more people attending. Maybe it's class, maybe it's a museum, who knows? But that's what we're talking about again, an increase in attendance. A third way you might hear boost used as a noun is to refer to a push from below. Kind of goes back to one of the earlier definitions of the verb that we looked at earlier. Now, you can't tell from my YouTube videos because I'm always seated, but I am very short and I struggle to reach things, climb over things. So I frequently will use this sentence to my husband, if he's with me, can you give me a boost, right? Can you help push or lift me so that I can reach something or get over a particular object? Another related word that you might hear is the noun booster. This can have a couple different meanings. The way you might hear it used a lot in the United States is connected to sort of supporting or promoting groups that exist in many US high schools. So many high schools have um, sports or athletic boosters. There can be band boosters. And many times these are parents or other friends of families that are providing support to either a team or an extracurricular activity. So, our definition here says an enthusiastic promoter of a person, organization, or cause. And so, in our schools, our boosters sometimes are our volunteers. They help the events run or exist. So, an example of this noun in a sentence, you might hear coaches say to their athletes, let's thank the boosters for working the concession stand, right? More people came, more people bought food and supported us because we have these volunteers here. A second way you'll hear booster used is to refer to just a source of help or a source of encouragement. So, an example of this, your texts and calls were such boosters while I was sick. So, someone might say this, again, referring to the messages I received really helped me. They encouraged me as I recovered. A third way you'll hear the noun booster used, and I hope you're hearing it a lot right now, is to refer to an additional dose of a vaccine or of a vaccination. And it's given in order to strengthen an earlier shot. So, an example here, have you gotten your COVID booster? Uh, Older adults here in the United States, I believe, are now eligible for 2 boosters. I've had 1 booster, and I'm waiting on word for when I can get an additional dose to hopefully strengthen and prevent any serious illness from COVID-19. The last word I'm going to leave you with is the noun booster chair or booster seat. If you happen to be a parent with small children, you might recognize this particular noun. It's just referring to a seat that helps raise up a child to a higher position so that they're able to sort of sit and right their head and neck many times are above the table. So when you go to a restaurant, if you have a small child with you, they might ask, do your children need a booster seat? Right? So they might have some little wooden or plastic things that help kind of sit the children up a little bit higher, again, so that they can reach and participate in the meal. Thanks so much for watching today's video. I hope you have a great day.